Fantastic. Can everybody see the presentation? Beautiful. So what are managed alcohol programs? I have a bit of it. So one of the things that we have been noticing is like there is like a higher prevalence of alcohol use and severe alcohol dependence amongst homeless population. So these programs are actually strategies in order to be able to provide social and health support to people that are experiencing this phenomenon. Usually the combination of alcohol use and the lack of housing is contributed to an increment of vulnerability to the harms of substance, but also like are including a stigma, injury, illness, marginalization, and other kind of like harms that we already touched a bit on the session of last week. In a very general sense, managed alcohol programs are administering prescribed dose of alcohol at regular intervals to people that are facing severe or chronic alcohol dependence and homelessness. Still is a very unknown typology of service. Although this kind of typology has started 20 years ago, it still is not really widely implemented. Originally, they started to be implemented in Canada, especially the first one that was in the region of Toronto. And in the Netherlands also, it's like quite common to find this typology of services. At the moment, there is 18 of these programs only in the Netherlands. The idea is to develop a pragmatic response to the present and complex needs for whom structural conditions such as homelessness, low income are contributing to poor health, high mortality, increased health services, and also different costs and difficulties in finding and keeping housing. The managed alcohol programs can work as standalone programs. We have seen them. For example, in the Netherlands, we have them as just a program in itself, or they could be integrating within different kind of like or residential or day homeless programs. This includes drop-in centers, but also we have seen them in housing first facilities. The managed alcohol programs can act as well as a node of access to health services and social services. And this sometimes we are seeing that is happening or in-house itself. There is like certain facilities that they are counting with nurses, with doctors, with labor integration programs, but also they are working as a referral point to other services that they are able to provide the support necessary. What are the effects that we see very much in general based on the literature of research? Like the managed alcohol programs actually compared with abstinence-based programs are more likely to retain people who participate to retain their housing in case they have it, and they experience an increased safety and improved quality of life compared with life on the streets, in jails, shelters, and hospitals. Participants in general are developing healthier patterns of consumptions. And then one of the things that comes across in actually the research done around it, they are like describing these places as being characterized by respect, trust, and non-judgmental approach with a sense of familiarity. And as well, they are providing opportunities to reconnect with family members or to rebuild networks of support. However, one of the things that becomes like very interesting, if we look at least on how in the popular media they are like covered, besides the evidence and the studies that shows that actually they are very effective programs, still there is a bit of a controversial touch to it, in which actually people are arguing that actually these kind of programs are encouraging or condoning alcohol consumption rather than to be supporting. One of the things that we see, for example, the image of the left of the New York Times actually was in reference back on the day in 2014 when the Regenboog group, and Marit will explain, there were like this whole controversy in which actually people were misunderstanding the program and were like thinking that Amsterdam was paying homeless people with beer in order to be clean on the streets. That's not exactly what was like happening, and we're going to be having in here Marit and Kathleen to explain a bit more of like what are the circumstances around this program, how are the methodologies of work, who are the people they're working with, what are the results, the effects, and they will be really happy to be answering questions for you. So I would like to just invite Kathleen and Marit to unmute themselves, and maybe they want to introduce themselves, and maybe they want to introduce a bit of the Regenboog Group, and what is the Regenboog Group, and what kind of work it does.
Well, hello everybody, welcome. I am manager work and activation in the Regenboog Group. The Regenboog Group is of the Rainbow Group Foundation, is a locally based organization in Amsterdam. Like 98% of our activities are really in Amsterdam. And correlation is the exception to the rule in our organization with the international approach. We have like 8 drop-in centers in town, and we have many locations spread over the city with daytime activities, work activities. We have a big department called informal care, informal support maybe, and about 850 volunteers are working from that department, and they are matched one-to-one with an Amsterdam citizen, and the volunteer helps as a kind of a buddy in problematic situations, and offers contact and help, and etc. etc. Well, much more to tell, but maybe not here, the right place to tell more about our organization. I work with Kathleen, I work closely with Kathleen, and yeah, well, maybe Kathleen, you can introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kathleen, like Marit said, and I work in a drop-in center in Amsterdam. And outside of the Corona time, we receive about 110 homeless people a day. In the Corona time, because of the distance, it's a lot different. Around 65 people a day we can receive on a safe distance. I worked with Marit on a couple of different projects, and one of the projects was quite a controversial project. It was the alcohol project. We've got a big park in Amsterdam, the Vondel Park, and from olden times a lot of homeless people gather there, and there's a lot of alcohol abuse and use in the Vondel Park, and we wanted to do something with the people who sit there, the homeless people who want to drink a lot of alcohol there. And I was responsible, and I worked closely with Marit, who was my boss there, and who made who told me how to work.
Well, we discussed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of work activities and daytime activities, and we are used to pay people a small fee, a small reward for the work they do. So that's the general business we have with our clients. And this project was an exception because we did not only pay a small fee, but we, as the newspapers said, we paid work by alcohol, by beer, paid by beer. Yeah, the reason why we did that, or maybe Roberto, maybe you ask the questions and we try to stick to the guideline.
Oh no, that's perfect. I mean, my question that I thought maybe to start with, so that people understand, for those that they don't know, because you did like this amazing project and it still is running, maybe it's helpful for people to know of like, what is the situation that you identify? What was happening in Amsterdam? What was the motivation for developing such a project?
Yeah.
What was happening?
Well, it is maybe important to understand that the Regenboog positions itself as a kind of a solution maker within the social domain.
Sandy, which room would you like to go? Sorry.
To number 4, please.
Yes, beautiful. Yes, which room would you like to go?
We also want to offer them more purpose, a positive aim, and yeah, that was the starting point.
Beautiful. And then within this context, then how did you go about it? Just a bit of like, what was like the project? What were like you counting with? What was like a bit like happening around that?
Yeah.
How did you involve other people to develop such a project?
Yeah. Well, what we actually did was we set up a new day activity project. That's what it was. We gathered a bunch of people. Well, we started to work with other organizations, and we have an organization called Street Corner Work, Street Workers, and they are continuously in the streets, and they make contact with people, with homeless people. And they already targeted a group in the park, and they already made contact with them. They already knew them, and they invited them to join the project. And the project was very simple, a day activity project. Come and help work in the park, gardening, hoe zeg je, Kathleen? Opruimen, clean up the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweeping, contribute something positive to the park. And well, that was the question and the chance we offered them. So together with other organizations, we managed to gather a group, and we started the project. I think, Kathleen, from the moment we got from the municipality a small a piece of land, not too far away from the Vondelpark, because we needed a place where we could start in the morning. And it was like 10 minutes away from the park. And there was a very small, what was it, a caravan or a small shed? Well, we could make coffee, and we could welcome people. And there we could store our gear. And as soon as we had that piece of land, we could start. I think we had 2 workers, Kathleen. There, yeah. You were the head of the project, and there was also another worker from the Regenboog, I think, who was involved.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. And to be honest, in the beginning, I was sitting in that little shed, and I thought this is hell. This is what hell looks like. The people, they were. I was used to working with homeless people, but we were sitting together in a little shed, and quite rough people, and they were talking loud, and they were shouting at me as a woman, but at a certain moment, quite soon, it started to change. And what made the change was the respect we had, respect for them as people, but also respect for them as alcohol users, and not condemning the fact that they were drinking alcohol, and even trying to control the people's alcohol use. Like the people were drinking alcohol anyway, and we wanted to give them the respect and the trust by they were going to work for an hour, and every hour or 1.5 hours they were getting a glass of beer. So they knew, I will get my beer. And what happened at a certain moment, they started to drink less beer, because they knew, I will get my beer in an hour, so I don't have to feed my addiction all the time. And they were getting a minimum amount of alcohol instead of only drinking. And so quite soon, the whole mood started to change with all the workers, and that was such a pleasure to see that.
That's beautiful, and you're bringing forward a bit more of like the in and outs. I would be very interested, maybe could you share a tiny bit more of like, how does the day look like? You already like mentioned a bit. Is there any particular structure besides like 1 hour work drinking? Were you like working group meetings? Do you incorporate food or other services? Do you organize things in any specific way? Maybe you want to share about how does the day in the program look like?
Yeah. People had to be in time. Like at 9 o'clock, they had to come to the shed, and we drank coffee together and we discussed our day. What are we gonna do? A few of the people they went for a sweeping on the streets, and another group went to the Vondelpark, which is in the middle of the center of Amsterdam, is famous for a rose garden, and it's a beautiful rose garden. And we took the responsibility to keep the roses growing and to keep the garden nice without litter, and that the ground was shuffled. So we divided the tasks. Some people are really mad about the plants, so we encourage that. And another group we encourage to keep the streets clean in the area where the shed was, so that the people who live there, they see, hey, it's nice actually what's happening there, instead of, oh, those drunken up. And so that we did in the morning, 9 o'clock till around 10 o'clock, and then we went our way. And every hour or 1.5 hours it was, we came back to the shed, either to drink or to eat. And that went on all day till 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's wonderful. You just mentioned something that I find really beautiful. You said like people are starting to see that they were like kind of like cleaning or they are like working. I would be interested into, because this is a project that takes place in public space. How is it to cooperate with people that were like in the park, or with people, with the neighbors, with community at large? How do you manage this? What kind of work do you have to be doing in there? Could you share a bit more about this?
Also, that had some a path to walk. Actually, in the beginning, it was not immediately people. It's not like a group of businessmen walking through the park. It is like beautiful, weird, strange group of people, including myself, actually, walking through the park. And so in the beginning, it was like whoa, what are they doing there? What's happening? But at a certain moment, we saw, especially around the shed where we had the shed, that people came and brought us food, brought us drinks, and it went gradually. It went better and better and better.
And I would be curious to put the same question, but slightly different for you, Marit, because you have a bit more like the project coordination. How was actually to be working with the municipality or with law enforcement or with other organizations as a way of like keeping the space for this project to happen? Kind of like, trust in this, work with this, because sometimes putting forward these projects requires like generating the trust and the management around that.
Yeah, well, we were lucky because the question came from not only the municipality, but we were already in a cooperation. So we already met up like once in 3-4 weeks to discuss these issues about problems in the city. So that made it easy for us that there was everyone felt the problem, and everyone felt the need for a solution. So there was a huge, hoe zeg je dat? A huge, well, everyone was very willing to join in and was very helpful. And we also had, I think, Kathleen, we also had a very good contact with the police officers, but also with the street coaches, with street corner work, with the GGD, the health department in Amsterdam. And that's what you need, because you can't set up a project, or you can't run a project like this in a kind of isolated box. Then it doesn't work. So you have to build up. If you don't have the links yet, you have to build up your network, and because you have to do it together. of course, it wasn't our main goal to let people into this day activity program. This was for a start magnificent that we managed to do that, but there were several other goals. Of course, we tried to let people to healthcare, to mental health care, to addiction clinics. Of course, the goal was broader. We also helped people to find their way to one of the drop-in centers we have. So this, in a way, this project was also kind of a tool to make it a step further with these people.
There is a question in the chat that would like to ask you, how was the project funded?
Yeah, it was funded 100% by the Amsterdam municipality. Yeah, they it was a pilot and they financed it because we never could have done it within our regular activities because it really needed some some energy, hours, money, yeah, to make it work. Yeah.
I would be curious, could you explain a tiny bit, like what are the effects that you saw in the participants, or what are the effects that you saw in the community at large? Like what were some of the results that you experienced with this project?
Well, I remember that about 10 or 12 clients were really led to healthcare because all the people who joined in the project, they had multiple problems, not only about addiction. Maybe it's not only about alcohol addiction, but also other addictions. It's about being lonely, don't have a day structure, not having a house. Most of them were sleeping in the park or in somewhere else in town. So that was an important result. That it was also, again, it was a tool because it was difficult to let people to help centers, and this project was a very good tool to manage that. Yeah. I think at least some people started to work in other daytime activities.
True.
Yeah. I remember that some of them, because we had to end the project at a certain moment, and how do you end it? So we tried to lead people to other drop-in centers or other day activity places, and I remember that that two clients, 2 or 3, they also became a regular visitor of Macom, of the Kloof.
Yeah.
And so this not only so also within our own organization, we could fall back on several places and activities we offer, and
and the challenge was there that in the project, in the Vondelpark project, the people were used to getting alcohol, and they came to the drop-in centers, and they were banned for using alcohol in a drop-in center. So the whole alcohol was taken out of the work at a certain moment.
Yeah.
I was wondering if someone here in the room will have questions. They would like to know a bit more about this, or maybe they would like to share some of the experiences that you're finding in your different cities all over Europe about alcohol, homelessness.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question, because we have a lot of drinking problem. Portugal is a country of alcoholics and not of illicit drugs. But it's quite difficult for us to manage the use of alcohol, by example, in the shelters, because if we give alcohol in this time of COVID, we must have some alcohol to the people that are contained in the house. But it's very difficult for us to manage the alcohol and the other users of illicit drugs, of cocaine and heroin, And what I would like to ask you is if you have any experience of managing this kind of programs indoor in shelters, like a wet room or a wet shelter. I don't know.
Now, well, we have user rooms for people who use drugs, but we don't have. Did you call it wet rooms? Kathleen, I'm not aware. I'm not sure, but I don't think they exist in our in our dropping centers.
No, they don't.
Maybe I don't know about them, but no.
Yeah.
It's strictly forbidden, I think, to use alcohol in our shelters. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the moment I'm working in a night shelter due to the coronavirus for homeless people. Around 45 people sleep there, and we let people like between our hands, we let them use drugs, but not alcohol. And why is that? Because mostly, now I'm talking about smoking joints actually, it makes you calm, and drinking alcohol brings a lot more aggression. So I believe that drinking alcohol has to be in a moderate, yeah, a small group of people, and not like in a big group of people, like in a drop-in center. That will be quite challenging and difficult, I think.
Yeah, the problem is it's most visible now because, as you say, because of COVID. We have the guys contained in the house. They now I have one positive, and so the rest of the guys cannot leave the house 1 minute. And we know that the privation of alcohol is quite difficult to deal. So we are trying to give some alcohol, but it's quite difficult for the others who use cocaine and heroin. So, okay, you can drink and I can do a cocaine. Why not? It's quite difficult for us to get some cocaine and heroin. Otherwise, it was okay for me, but it's quite difficult for managing this because they feel very angry with each others and with us. It's quite difficult to manage that kind of moments.
Yeah, what I've seen in the Netherlands, in housing first facilities, so in protected sheltering, where the people are kind of like living permanently or semi-permanently, there has been experiments into allowing alcohol inside, and I'll happy to pass you information of these organizations. But the challenge that they were like facing in the Netherlands is what Kathleen was putting forward. When you have a big group of people and everybody's under the influence of alcohol, the situation can get a slightly bit volatile, a tiny bit.
Yeah.
What we are trying to do, it's exactly what you have done regarding to the gardens that give with a big period of distance between one glass and the other, but try to give them enough for the craving. It's not so strong, and for them not to feel the syndrome of privation, but trying not to them to change their that getting drunk because we know, yeah, if they get drunk, it's a saloon, no, in far west city. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
There is a question in the chat that they are putting forward, like, do you have groups like the Alcoholic Anonymous that those who are alcohol dependent can get continual support? So this is a bit more of like the question of like, if someone would like to quit drinking or need support with that, like how do you link with therapy or treatment? Or is there any group around this?
Yeah, we are in close contact with an organization in Amsterdam, which is called the Jelinek. And people can, if people want, we never force them because people have to want to quit. We can make contact with an organization like the Jelinek, and like the AA or the NA. We can give them addresses for that as well, but also that is something that people really have to want to do themselves. and not, if it's forced on people, it never works actually. That's what we believe. Yeah, and we believe more in like the harm reduction, and like the Vondelpark the Vondelpark project. It was harm reduction in every way. It was a classic sample of harm reduction.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else in the room will have some questions. I would like to share the situation in their cities or in their organizations.
No. Yeah, maybe I think it was already clear that it wasn't in our case. We didn't set up a medical program or something. We did serve alcohol, but it was really like tailor-made, one-to-one. What does one person need? Some persons didn't need that much. Other persons they already arrived drunk, which was of course also a problem. But I think that's the difference with the Canadian project where it all started. There it was really kind of a medical approach. That was not the case in our situation. You can see alcohol as one of the tools to keep the people on track and to see if we can make better solutions for the future in their situation. Yeah.
I was wondering if like maybe someone would like to share how you're dealing with alcohol in your drop-in centers or housing first facilities. What are the problems you are encountering?
I can give my experience, sorry. We have shelters and we have drop-ins also. And usually we don't allow to drink inside of the facilities. We have no special program for alcohol, although we have, as you said it before, as Roberto said, there is a big prevalence of alcohol among the homeless people. We are dealing with the alcohol more at this time because of COVID, because of the difficulty for the people to get out of the shelters. If you have an idea, there is some shelters in Portugal that have the people closed since March, with a little walk of 1-2 hours a day, but the majority of the days in the shelter. If you have one positive, all the group must be in there. So this has been the question of alcohol. We don't have, we are starting to have consumption room for heroin exclusively, but we don't have alcohol programs, neither specific places for the people to consume alcohol or to try to moderate their use of alcohol. Although, as I said, Portugal is a country of essentially alcoholic, not people who use heroin or cocaine. We are essentially alcoholic. But I think as the alcohol is very cultural in our way of living, we try to, we don't pay a lot of attention. Only in this last 2-3 years, we are trying to engage really with some concern the alcohol situations. But there is no specific program in Portugal for the alcohol abuse. So there was, there is no distribution of anything. The health education, it's quite small for the alcohol. we have a lot of for the illicit drugs. We try to teach how to inject everything that it's traditional in harm reduction due to illicit drugs. We do all that, but the alcohol, it's quite a taboo. It's not a taboo. It's not forbidden, but it's cultural. It's not so seen so with so much attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was having a question for you, Kathleen, that you were like on the floor. I would be interested if you could share it a tiny bit more, because has been already mentioned a few times, but not really dived into. Sometimes it's not only alcohol, sometimes it's also the combination of alcohol with other substances. So sometimes it could be with people smoking joints, sometimes it could be actually users of other substances. How do you work around this?
Yeah, good question. How we do that is in with us in the centers. It is not allowed to use any alcohol or drugs. Some of the drop-in centers have, as said, a user room. What we often have is that people come in quite drunk, for example, and sometimes we know that it will go wrong because we know the people who come in, and we know a lot of aggression will come. So we try to say already at the door, please stay away. We'll help you by staying away. You won't get banned for a long time, only for today. And here we give you some food, we give you a coffee, but please don't come in today. And that's actually the way, we try to work around it. And we're used, like all of you, we're used to quite, people with their behavior, but we try to canalize it that it stays a good and a safe place for everybody.
That's beautiful. This idea of like knowing people individually and then being really able to work on an individual level and know what is going to be happening.
Yeah. And we've quite a lot of projects within our drop-in centers. Like we have a candle making place, a bicycle making place in another drop-in center. We've got an art suite. We've got all kind of programs where people can participate. And you don't have to be completely sober to participate, but we expect a level of work and a level of commitment. And by taking the people seriously, people start drinking less when they're working in the projects. And it really works if you take people seriously. They take you and they take the project seriously. And that is beautiful and lovely to see, actually.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. We have a few minutes left. If there is no other questions, I think I would like to propose you, like, let's imagine that we have here people that will be potentially interested into developing such a program or such a potential. So if you had to be setting up something like this, would you have a series of like 1, 2, 3 recommendations that you would say like those are really lessons that we learned that they are really important to pass on to other people? For example, Mari, you already mentioned one before, this idea of like this needs to be with a team of people. You need to be cooperating with other organizations. That's fundamental. Like that was a great one. Is there any sort of like advices, 1, 2, that actually you would like to pass on to?
I already mentioned that you cannot set up a difficult project like this in a kind of isolated box. So really observe the situation very well. It doesn't need to take a long time to observe it, but be alert and see what's the exact situation in your country or in your city or wherever, and try to find a solution which fits the problem. And don't start writing an enormous project plan based on the Canadian and the Amsterdam projects. Of course, you can read our stuff and our evaluations and try to pick the strong ingredients and then make your own cocktail, your own mix. Maybe you can integrate it within the mythology in your drop-in center. I don't know. maybe you can extend a project with a kind of place, a room where people with alcohol addiction can have a rest and can use. And well, I think that's important. And then Kathleen mentioned the third most important ingredient, and that is respect for your people. Get to know them real. Skill your workers with good conversation skills. Ask the right questions, because it happens so often that people don't get asked the right questions. It's like an ordinary thing that they are an alcoholic or a homeless, but you know, it may be better than I do, but it's our people. We're talking about people who are like everyone. So I think the key is what Kathleen mentioned, that you start to talk with people, that you make contact. And I think this project was the first step in making a deeper contact with these men. And but the main goal is much broader. Is maybe we can, how much can it help if you offer a person on a structural base work? And then if you offer a person work activities, then you also offer colleagues and a Christmas party and everything which belongs to work. So yeah, I think it's all about being positive and make contact. And well, if you watch this target group, then yeah, if you work with alcoholics, then they need their booze, they need their drinks, otherwise they can't function. So keep that in mind, and yeah, try to make up your own small solution, and maybe start with a small pilot, and if it works, you can make it bigger and bigger. Yeah, that's a little bit our own approach, the way we deal with things. Kathleen, did I miss something?
Yeah, perfect. And I think it's important to have a clear structure, especially if you combine it with using, have the structure clear, that everybody knows how it works, and that it's clear, and that the expectations are clear as well, both for the workers, for the environment, and for the surroundings around the place.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for those lessons. They are really, really on point, super interesting, invaluable, really useful. Yeah, Natasha's like, yeah, thank you. That was very interesting. That was enlightening and useful. Like, totally agree. It was a great presentation. Thank you so much for joining. And we are on the time to go back to the main room, but this doesn't mean that the conversation is ending. It means that now we'll bring it forward back into the 60 participants all together in the main room. So in a second, you will see that you're invited to go back to the main room. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining this.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Maddie and Kathleen.
Bye.
Now everybody slowly will start coming back. It's interesting how a space works with Zoom. It's like, oh, now we're in a different one. Welcome everybody slowly to the main room. Hello everybody back. Nice to see you all.
I
How was the
wasn't
room?
You just broke it up.
Sorry?
You just broke it up. I wasn't finished, but you made me finish.
Extended. Where did you left it?
Sorry?
Where did you leave it?
I was almost finished, but you just closed it down. It was good because I just tend to continue all over.
I was wondering, because we had like these different kind of like initiatives that were like dealing with drug consumption rooms, alcohol rooms, community-based testing programs, and then we had also like outreach activities. I was wondering if anybody in the rooms would like to share anything that really like took their attention today, or some elements that you consider as like, oh, why? This actually I never considered of, or that was surprising, or that was like interesting. Or maybe that you would like to clarify further, something that you didn't have time in the room to continue, you want to pose a particular question and then bring it to the whole group.
Something that maybe just to quickly share, something that I really found like quite impressive and really very, very hands-on. So I was in the mobile and outreach, no, sorry, in the community testing breakout room, and with Jonas from the Users Academy. And what they actually do is that they bring the methadone to any, let's say, almost any type of place. So it really can be with family, with friends, in a shelter, you know, kind of night shelter. So it's very, very, I mean, it's all the logistics, of course, which is around, which also kind of requires really some work and get organized. But yeah, I find it really impressive. I think it's really great to set it up in that way. Yeah, and also I'm still learning a lot on treatment. Yeah, like that was something that really caught my attention.
I have a question for Henrik and Sandra for the outreach workers. I find it really interesting, but I was wondering, this is something the government said it had to be done, or how this started the outreach project?
In our case, it's on ONG, okay? So it's financed and it's not totally financed. It's not government. But we use the structures of the government, like hospitals, like medication, okay? Treatment structures, for example, doctors.
Our project started out as a state-funded outreach project in 2000, and when that stopped, it was taken over by the city as a different project, and we were supposed to become a fixed institution after that, but actually we have been funded as a project, and we have to reapply for our funding every 3 to 4 years, and as we will do next year. So that's how it works here.
That's an interesting question. In my room also was like popping by, because sometimes these initiatives, one of the questions everybody having is like, how do you fund it and how do you make it sustainable? I was wondering, is also like maybe for other people want to contribute something around this? How do you deal with this part of implementing harm reduction projects? Any strategies, approaches?
Roberto, in Portugal, we have just the same situation that Henrik